All right, so Qwen3 Coder just dropped as a 480 billion open weight model, and it's going head to head with OpenAI's Codex. The number that stopped me cold, Qwen3 Coder's entry API tier cost 11 cents per million input tokens versus Codex's cheapest option at $1. Both are being pushed hard as serious agentic coding tools right now, so the stakes are real. I'm comparing them across 4 concrete tests: accuracy, context window, pricing, and agentic autonomy, and every number traces back to a verified source, no vendor spin. And honestly, the part that got me wasn't the pricing gap at all. It's what happens when you push these models on hard real-world coding tasks, because one of them has a pretty embarrassing weak spot you'd never guess from the headline numbers. So this comparison is for developers and teams who are literally deciding right now which model to build agentic workflows around. Because pick the wrong one and you're either overpaying by a factor of 9 on every API call, or you're shipping code with a lower accuracy ceiling on the tasks that actually matter, and that costs you way more than the token bill. Test 1, code generation accuracy. What goes wrong without this is super concrete. Your agent opens a pull request, the fix looks right, the tests pass, and then 3 days later, a reviewer catches that it's silently broken edge case. And that costs you way more than the token bill. I looked at the SWE bench verified numbers for both, and what surprised me is how close it actually is. Codex's GPT-5 Codex variance came in at around 74%, and Qwen3 Coder 480 billion hit 69.6%. So that's roughly a 4-point gap. But bear in mind, these came from different testing setups, so treat it as directional. And on medium difficulty real-world tasks, Qwen3 Coder scored 9.25 out of 10 on independent evals. Now, before you call this one, I want to be honest about something. Both models apparently score 1 out of 10 on uncommon TypeScript narrowing patterns. So that's a shared blind spot, not a Qwen3 Coder problem specifically. And the 16x eval data for medium difficulty tasks only exists for Qwen3 Coder, so we can't do a clean side-by-side there, okay? So Codex takes test 1. I was honestly expecting a bigger gap given the marketing, but 74% versus 69.6% on Savui bench is the lead Codex has. And it's real even if it's smaller than it sounds. So that puts us at Qwen3 Coder 0, Codex 1 with 3 tests still to go. Test 2, context window and long file handling. What bites you here is a bill you didn't see coming. You're running a Codex session on a big code base, you cross 272,000 tokens, and suddenly you're being charged double on every input token above that line. And that surcharge compounds fast on agentic sessions that can burn 150,000 to 200,000 tokens in under 30 minutes. At native limits, these two are pretty comparable. Qwen3 Coder sits at 256,000 tokens, Codex caps at 272,000 input tokens, but Qwen3 Coder can extend to 1 million tokens via YaRN extrapolation, while Codex has no extension path at all, and on top of that, Codex charges 2 times input plus 1.5x output if you go over its cap. To be fair, if you're running typical sessions that stay under 256,000 tokens, this dimension basically doesn't matter. Both models cover you fine at native limits. And the gap only opens up when you're ingesting a truly massive codebase or running long, multi-step agentic sessions where context accumulates. So if that's not your workflow, the ceiling advantage is kind of irrelevant. Qwen3 Coder takes test 2, the 1 million token ceiling with no surcharge versus Codex's hard cap with a 2x penalty is a pretty clear structural win. So now we're tied up at Qwen3 Coder 1, Codex 1, heading into the 2 tests that I think actually decide this thing. Test 3, API pricing and cost per token. What quietly eats your margin here is a monthly bill that compounds before you notice it. OpenAI's own rate card estimates Codex runs $100 to $200 per developer per month. So for a team of 10, that's up to $2,000 a month just for the model layer before you've paid for anything else. I pulled the pricing pages, and what surprised me was how wide the gap actually is. Qwen3 Coder next runs 11 cents per million input tokens on OpenRouter, while Codex's cheapest option, GPT-5. 6 Luna starts at $1 per million input, so that's 9 times right at the entry level, and on output tokens, it's 80 cents per million, versus Codex GPT. 5.5 standard at $30 per million. Qwen3 Coder wins test 3, and it's not close. I was expecting a price gap. But a 37 times difference on output tokens is way beyond what I anticipated. And if you self-host the open weight version, the per token cost goes to 0 entirely. So that moves us to Qwen3 Coder 2, Codex 1 with 1 test left. Test 4, agentic coding and multi-step task autonomy. What trips you up here is a session that just stops. Codex resets every 5 hours and has weekly caps, which means a long overnight refactor job gets interrupted, your agent loses its thread, and you're manually picking up the pieces in the morning. Looking at what's actually published here, it's a mixed picture. Qwen3 Coder was trained across 20,000 parallel environments using GSPO, which is a pretty serious RL setup, while Codex runs in a sandbox cloud with 4 intelligence tiers and built-in test running. And on SWE bench agentic scores, it's 69.6% versus roughly 74%. But again, different testing setups, so I wouldn't call that a clean head-to-head. Honestly, this one really depends on your setup. Codex's sandbox cloud environment with built-in test running is genuinely convenient if you don't want to manage infrastructure, but Qwen3 Coder's open weight freedom matters a lot more if you're running sustained high volume workflows. And I think that's kind of the whole story here. Two different architectures solving the same problem, and neither is strictly better. This one's a tie. I was expecting a clear winner given how different the architectures are, but the benchmark data isn't comparable enough to call it either way. So the final scoreboard lands at Qwen3 Coder 2, Codex 1, 1 tied. And that score honestly undersells how close the real-world agentic experience is between these two. Qwen3 Coder wins on price control and scale. It's 9 times cheaper at entry tier, 37 times cheaper on output tokens at the high end, and if you self-host the Apache 2.0 licensed version, you pay nothing per token, plus the 1 million token context ceiling via YARN beats Codex's hard cap, and it integrates natively with Claude Code, Klein, Coder, Kilo, and Tray. Codex wins on accuracy and managed convenience. Its GPT-5 Codex variants score roughly 74% on Subwe bench verified versus Qwen3 Coder's 69.6%, which is a real directional lead on the benchmark that matters most. The sandboxed cloud environment with built-in test running and multi-file debugging means zero infrastructure overhead. And GPT 5.5 uses 72% fewer output tokens than Claude Opus 4.7 on equivalent tasks. So honestly, I was expecting Codex to dominate on accuracy by more, but the accuracy gap turned out smaller than the marketing suggests. So the decision rule is pretty simple. If you're running high volume agentic workflows where cost per task compounds, go Qwen3 Coder. And if you need the highest benchmark accuracy with a fully managed cloud environment and no GPU setup, go Codex.